Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you the best honor mode party build guide in Baldur's Gate 3. Now I'll be going over the best gear through the axe, best combat strategies, and showing you the builds for all 4 characters here. We're going to have a face of the party here, a supporting cleric, a spellcaster, and a damage dealer, and I'll be breaking down all the builds in this video, first starting with the face of the party. Now, one of the strongest faces of the party is to mix the Paladin with the Bard. We're going to take 2 levels of the Paladin so we can get Divine Smite, and then take 10 levels of the Bard so that you get the Magical Secrets. You can do Flourishes, which can attack 2 targets and smite both of them, which is a huge DPS boost. We also get all the great crowd control spells from the Bard. Now, I'd recommend, if you're going to start at like the beginning of the game, start with the Bard and take it up to level 6. That's when it gets the extra attack. But later on, starting with the Paladin gives you heavy armor proficiency and wisdom save proficiency, which is great because those are some of the worst saves to go against. So once you're at a higher level, take the Paladin here. And I would actually recommend going with the Oath of the Crown because the Righteous Clarity here can add a proficiency bonus to an attack roll for 10 turns. This is a really useful ability since we're only taking it 2 levels. Inquisitor's Might's not really that good, and I mean, the other abilities are okay. I just think the Oath of the Crown is the best here for offsetting Great Weapon Master. Now, our stat spread it's going to depend on a few different things. We can go strength-based. We want to have a decently high charisma for our aura spell casting, but I think it's best to actually utilize dexterity here. So we're going to go in with 16 in our dexterity. And if you use the hags here, you can go with 17 dexterity and put that up to 18. Dexterity is going to give us a better armor class, which will keep us alive. This is going to be dependent on what way you go, because if you go evil, you can get a really good spear. If you go the good alignment, you get really good armor. So this highly depends on where you're going to go. You can make a strength-based one. You just swap your strength with dex, but initiative is so very important in Baldur's Gate 3 because the initiative die is a D4. So if we can get our dexterity up to a +3, that allows us to go first a lot more times than not, and that's a really big boost to our overall effectiveness. Make sure you do have the skill in persuasion if you're going to be the face of the party, but we're going to go with something like this. Once you add in the Bard, you do get some additional proficiencies as well, but we're just going to go with, I would recommend just the 2 levels of the Paladin here because Divine Smite's all we want it for. Make sure to set your reactions. We also get a fighting style, and I think the biggest bang for our buck is defense. +1 to AC is good, especially if we're kind of a tankier character as a Paladin. You could go Great Weapon Master if you want to use a 2-weapon hand, or dueling if you want a 1-handed weapon with a sword. I think defense just brings the biggest oomph for our choice in fighting style there. Now, we want to have the command spell because the Bard doesn't get access to this, and this is a very crucial spell to have, because in Act 3, we can cast this as a bonus action. So we can go in and do our attacks, command a few other targets, lose their turns. Very useful. We also don't mind having Bless here, especially early game. Shield of Faith to increase your overall survivability. Cure Wound's not really the best choice, and the Smites are okay. It's not bad to have Thunderous Smite for the pushback on it, or I guess even Wrathful Smite if you wanted to, but really the Paladin's best spells are the ones that you get at level 2 with Divine Smite. For level 3, it's great to get the Oath abilities here, but we're going to add in the Bard. And for cantrips, I would recommend, if you're the face of the party, to take Friends and Mage Hand. Vicious Mockery can be nice too, because we can actually cast this as a bonus action, but we can get another cantrip later on. I just like to have the Friends and the Mage Hand there, because Mage Hand can throw water bottles for your Storm Sorcerer to do double lightning or cold damage. And the Mage Hand can also throw healing potions to keep you alive. Minor Illusion's also a great tool to have as the face of the party. But if you want to have a damaging option, Vicious Mockery would be a good replacement there, and you can swap off Mage Hand preferably. Now, for the spells we'll be taking at level 1 here, Healing Word for the bonus action heal. It's crucial if you have a down teammate. Sometimes you can pick them back up with that. Thunderwave, we can buff our team with Longstrider too, and Dissonant Whispers, because that's an enchantment spell, and we want to have as many of those as possible. Alternatively, you can take Tasha's Hideous Laughter if you have someone else that's going to give you Longstrider, but I like to be able to have Longstrider there, and then next level, I guess we could take the Tasha's Hideous Laughter, which is another enchantment spell we want to have. Level 2 gives us a nice boost to our overall healing, because Song of Rest, that's just, if you had a small encounter and you need to heal your team up, use this. Don't heal. Don't use your spell slots. We also get Jack of All Trades, adding half a proficiency bonus to ability checks we're not proficient in. Very useful in honor mode. And we'll take Tasha's Hideous Laughter here. Fairy Fire can be a decent spell as well, but I think that Tasha's is just a little bit more bang for our buck, because, again, we can bonus action spell cast with it. Now, College of Swords is the best choice here, just because the Slashing Flourish allows us to turn our reaction smites on and do a Slashing Flourish, attack 2 targets and smite 2 targets. Big damage. It's actually crazy. And it's also nice because you can use the bow attacks to attack the same target twice, or we can use the armor class increasing defensive flourishes to give us a +4 to our AC. This makes us really tanky. We also get to take a fighting style. Since I'm using a shield, go with dueling here because this will add additional 2 damage on top of our shield. And for the spells that we get at level 2, Hold Person is an extremely effective spell, and we want to have this as early on as possible, so we're going to grab that here at level 3. Hold Person gives us free crits, which means an extra critical hit die on our smites. Big damage. Now here we get, again, Minor Illusion or Friend's Cantrip, and we're going to go with the option of either Silence can be nice to shut down spellcasters, or we can go with Invisibility, because we're kind of going to be in an interesting position. If you go with the evil route, you can't get the best heavy armor, and it's actually best for us to wear medium armor at that point, and then you can use invisibility to stealth your way around. This is actually not a bad choice. Some people really like Cloud of Daggers, though, because it doesn't have a check, it just automatically deals damage, and a well-placed Cloud of Daggers can actually do quite some damage. So it's either that or invisibility there, just depending on your personal preference. Knock can be a good spell too, especially into Act 2. And then for our first feat, we have a few choices that we can go with. So Savage Attacker is never a bad choice. Rerolling damage dies just means that your flat out damage is increased, which is always a great thing to have. I like the alert feat too, especially on an attacker like this, which can do high amounts of damage with the slashing flourishes. Sometimes you can go in and take out 2 targets and then make your other teammates go first in their initiative or go alongside your team in the initiative, and this protects them. So alert is very important, especially early on. You could also go with an increase your overall charisma or dexterity, but I do think that the alert feat is a great choice. Also, again, you can go with the Savage Attacker there to boost our damage, or even Sentinel has its uses. Level 5 gives us our improved Bardic Inspiration to a 1d8, and we can take Glyph of Warding, which is actually a really good spell. It's almost like Fireball, but with half the range. If you're a half-elf, you can put a sleep glyph at your feet and knock everyone around you to sleep and keep yourself awake. Fear and Plant Growth are 2 other great spells. Plant Growth is nice because it does not require concentration, and it's just going to help out with the overall crowd control that we want to accomplish. Hypnotic Pattern and Fear are 2 other good spells. I really like Fear, though. Being able to drop enemies' weapons and pick them up is really nice. We also get our extra attack here, and this is a huge power spike. I wish we were able to get Booming Blade, but if you take a high elf, they can choose Booming Blade as their special cantrip for the race, and that gives you another huge boost to your overall damage too. That's, I guess, the optimal way to play this, because you don't get it like a sorcerer or wizard would get it. Now, for our next level spell, there's 2 great ones. Greater Invisibility, because this allows you to turn invisible, and the stealth checks keep climbing up higher and higher. Again, you're going to want to wear medium armor if utilizing this, but you can also cast this as a bonus action with the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel. Same as Confusion, which is also a pretty good spell, because enemies will have a 1 in 10 chance of acting normally. 9 in 10 times, they're going to do something random, so it could be just walking and attacking their teammates or just wandering around. It's a really good spell, and kind of underutilized. So it works well, because it can be bonus action cast, and it's got a huge area of effect. Level 8 gives us another choice in spell, and I would say Greater Invisibility, but Dimension Door can also be pretty good, because this can teleport you and someone else away if you really needed to get out of somewheres, but you can also go with Plant Growth too. Now, for this feat, again, we could go with the option to take the Savage Attack or Sentinel feats, and even something like Warcaster to hold your concentration can be nice, but I think that an ability score improvement, because we want to do a bit of spell casting as a bard, we kind of have that on our wraps. Dexterity can be a good choice, though. If you're going evil, dexterity probably be best, because you're going to wear the armor of agility instead of the armor of persistence, which is a heavy armor. You get a higher armor class this way with a higher dexterity. Once you go to 18, it outperforms the armor persistence, but the armor persistence comes with some extra benefits built in. But charisma, if you want to have better spell casting, it's kind of the crossroads here, depending on how you prefer to play your character. I like going higher in the dexterity, so that's the way that I'm going to roll with it. As you can get Arcane Acuity from a new item that was fixed in patch 8, the Gloves of Battle Mage's Power, which I'll get to into the gear section. Level 9 gives us another choice in our spells here, with Hold Monster being the top priority, because this is huge. But our next level is the biggest one for the Bard, because we get the Magical Secrets. Now we can take another cantrip, we can go with a spell from our spell list, Dominate Person or Planar Binding could be good choices. Magical Secrets. There's 2 good options to go here. So you can get spells like Hunger of Hadar. This is only cast at a level 3 spell slot, and it actually locks down a large area. You can also get Spirit Guardians. Now, I love Spirit Guardians, however, only 1 instance of Spirit Guardians can affect an enemy per turn. We are going to have a Cleric as well. The Cleric that pops Spirit Guardians is going to apply Radiating Orbs. We can't do that. They can. We're not actually best utilizing Spirit Guardians by taking it. I wish we could get Shadow Blade, because that's a really powerful spell. But I think the best choices here is to go with Cone of Cold and the Water Mirror, or the Water Elemental. Don't upcast the Water Myrmidon. They changed it in patch 8, so it no longer applies wet. But the Water Elemental, its main punching attack will apply Chilled, which gives double damage to Cone of Cold. So this 64 damage becomes 128. It's actually a massive boost to overall damage. Some people really like Banishing Smite. Just be mindful this eats your bonus action and your concentration. So if you're holding a concentration on something else, it ends, like your whole person may be gone. Can banish a target for, if they have 50 more health points, they cannot be banished. So 50 or lower, you're likely going to get them down to that health point threshold. It's a good choice. Now, another good one is Counterspell. You could potentially go with like a Banishing Smite counterspell or Cone of Cold counterspell. I think having elementals is extremely valuable. However, you can buy them from scrolls, so you don't need it as part of your spell list. And you could potentially go with a setup of Cone of Cold and Counterspell. Counterspell is something the Bard doesn't get, but it's a massive boost to everyone's survivability. So I do like this setup as well if you don't want to go with the Conjure Elemental, or if you have someone else like on your team that can do elementals, you can let them do it. We also get to take some skill proficiencies, Intimidation, and I guess Athletics here to prevent getting shoved around. So yeah, our final level is actually a pretty impactful one. Counterspell is a really beneficial spell, especially because you can have 2 people on your team with it, and that shuts down a lot of spells. Now, what this looks like for gear, there's a few really good options depending on, I guess I'll start with the rings because this one is the most important. It's in Act 3, the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel. Whenever you hit an enemy, you can get a free bonus action illusion or enchantment spell. This pairs well with the Ring of Arcane Synergy. So whenever we do I guess this one only applies if we have the High Elf, because if you're a High Elf, you can take Booming Blade, which will give your Charisma modifier to your damage rolls, which is a really good boost. But some other good rings are the Ring of Free Action, so you don't get stuck with difficult terrain. The Caustic Band, because we're going to do Slashing Flourishes, so that's an extra 2 damage on each enemy. Even the Killer Sweetheart is always a good choice to throw on any type of build. You could even go into something like the Strange Conduit Ring to add additional psychic damage when you're concentrating on a spell, which is not a bad choice at all. Crusher's Ring for the +3 movement speed in Act 1. That's also a really good ring to have too. I like the Ring of Free Action personally, just for the extra choice or the extra ability to survive. But also another good one is the Ring of Mental Inhibition. If they fail a saving throw against one of your spells, they get mental fatigue for 2 turns. Although this could go a little bit better on a different type of caster. And what we could do is even take the Snowburst Ring here and give our Spellcaster this ring. It just depends, depending on, I guess, how you want to build out your character. Since we took Cone of Cold, I think it might actually be best to go with this. And another little trick we could do is use the Drake Throat Glaive to put cold damage on our bow, and then use our bow with Arrow of Many Targets and the Helmet of Arcane Acuity, because with the Helmet of Arcane Acuity, you can get a bunch of extra attacks, or +10 to your spell save DC from an Arrow of Many Targets, and it'll also spread ice surfaces utilizing this, which is a pretty crazy setup. For the bow, I went with the Dead Shot, because this increases our critical hit chance, and crits on smites are very beneficial. I went with the Helmet of Arcane Acuity, but you can also go with the Helm of Baldur, because this one will give you can't be stunned or critically hit and heals you for 2 at the start of each turn, which is really good, just the extra sustainability there. But the Helmet of Arcane Acuity is great too. The Gloves of Battle Mage's Power is the other choice, because you can only get +10 from Arcane Acuity. We don't really want to have 2 items here, but this one will give it whenever we smite or do if you have Booming Blade, this would do it as well. I like the Helmet of Arcane Acuity here because, again, Arrow of Many Targets with a high crit chance is actually a really good setup. And for this, we could swap off and use like the helldusk gloves. But if we're in the early game, you could even use the Gloves of the Belligerent Skies to apply reverberation on your radiant attacks. So you got a lot of good options. Gloves of Battle Mage's Power, Gloves of even the Gloves of Dexterity can fit in here, or the helldusk gloves for gloves. Now for boots, I'm wearing the helldusk boots, but early game you'd want to go with the Disintegrating Nightwalkers for the Misty Step to get around, which is something that you were kind of lacking on this build. You could even go with the Boots of Stormy Clamor, but we're going to roll with this setup here with the helldusk, armor persistence, cloak protection, and the Helmet of Arcane Acuity, the Band of Mystic Scoundrel, Snowburst Ring, the Dead Shot for the increased critical hit chance. Now for our weapon, this depends. If you're on an evil playthrough, which ignore Shadowheart Terror Color, this would be the best choice because this allows you to see in darkness, set up darkness, get additional damage, cannot be blinded. This is one of the best weapons in the game, and it's rightfully so. It does so much damage. Now you could also go with the Baldur and Giant Slayer if you want to use a strength potion to max out our damage that way. If we're going to use, I only have like 3 legendary weapons equipped here. Duelist Prerogative for 2 counter spells is another good choice. And even Nyrelna is good on really any build for the additional thunder damage. 1d6 of extra thunder is great, especially if you use the Gloves of the Belligerent Skies there for the extra damage. I'm going to roll with this, but you can also use the Sacred Star or even the Sword of Chaos for its extra healing. So if you don't have this weapon, Nyrelna is honestly one of the best choices. You can also even put it into a throwing kind of build. The Knife of the Underbound King fits here as well. I'm going to go with the Shar Spear of the Evening, Viconia's Walking Fortress, and that's the Paladin here. It's a good tanky character, and it can dish out a ton of damage. Tanky because we have the Amulet of Greater Health setting our Constitution 23, and that gives us 138 health. Now for our support character, our Cleric. I honestly think the light domain is by far the best choice here, especially if we want to have more of a support defensive role, because we can get the improved warding flare to turn an attack into disadvantage. If an enemy's attack would have dealt a ton of damage and we turn it into a miss, that is so much more beneficial than something like the life domain can provide. So great support. If we want to be more on the offensive side of things, the Tempest domain with its massive lightning damage is really great. But I think light domain just fits much better on our team synergy wise. Now we're going to go for cantrips. Toll the Dead is a great early game because it's a wisdom save. Sacred Flame for anything that's weak to radiant damage or is bad with dexterity. And then we also have the guidance cantrip here, adding 1d4 bonus to ability checks. It's great. If you can respec, Booming Blade is great to take on, I guess not on this build, but on your mentioned previously. Now, for our ability scores, I think it's actually best to build a bit around of our dexterity here because we're going to go with medium armor. This only gets a +2. But on top of this, we can also use a dexterity-based weapon with Falor Aluv, which can also debuff or buff our team. This is actually a really funny Act 1 weapon that is super powerful for us throughout the entire game. So we could go with the stat spread of 16 dex, 14 constitution, and 16 wisdom here with 10 charisma. And you can put 10 into your intelligence here. This is a pretty solid stat spread, and we're going to obviously have to use dexterity-based weapons. But since we're wearing medium armor, we do get our dexterity +2 from our armor class. Alternatively, if you want to reduce your initiative, you could go with an increase and take your constitution to 16 and go with a stat spread of this. So it's your choice there. If you find the initiative more important, I'm going to go with a higher constitution here. I think that just works better for a cleric. Level 2 gives us the ability to dispel darkness with the radiance of the dawn. On top of this, it also does a 2d10 radiant damage, and that's pretty nice. We also get to take some very powerful spells with Sanctuary, protecting a teammate. We can also grab Healing Word, Bless. It's nice to have command on this character as well, and to set up our Spellcaster, Create or Destroy Water. This is nice. Guiding Bolt can be an okay spell, but we can always take that at, I guess, in the future if we wanted to. Level 3 gives us Scorching Ray and a Flaming Spear. Scorching Ray is actually a really good damage option for us. We then get to take another type of spell, and Hold Person is one that I always like to have, but Spiritual Weapon can also be a good consideration because this allows you to summon a Maul. The Maul can daze targets, and targets that are dazed have disadvantage on wisdom saves like Command and Hold Person, so they're much more likely to get hit by those. At level 4, we get to take another cantrip. Actually, I think Produce Flame is a good choice here because you can create a light in your hand. Once you get to Act 2, this is really good. And for our first feat, if you want to increase your chance of holding a concentration, Warcaster to give advantage on saving throws against concentrations, and you can get a reaction to cast Saving Grasp if an enemy attacks you. I think that going with a wisdom increase is good, or again, I like to have my whole team with the alert feat, especially because your cleric wants to get in there and set up their spirit guardians and things like that. So alert is actually another, alert's really one of the best choices in honor mode, just because surprise can be an end runner if you get really bad luck. Now, level 5 gives us a really great spell with Fireball and the ever-powerful Spirit Guardians. I'd also recommend Glyph of Warding, especially if you get Shadowheart, because she's a half-elf, she can't be put to sleep. You can drop a Glyph of Sleep at your feet, and you're going to put anything to sleep. Pretty nice to have that there as an option, but it also does damage too. Level 6 gives us our subclass feature, Improved Warding Flare. When an enemy attacks an ally, you can use your reaction and impose disadvantage on the attack roll. Again, that's a huge buff because sometimes you can end up making them miss entirely, and that's damage that you don't have to heal back. We're going to take Mass Healing Word because we do have some items to buff up our team with. Level 7 gives us Wall of Fire and the Guardian of Faith. Those are good spells to have, and we also can take Death Ward. I think that's nice to have, just especially if you can regenerate a spell slot somehow, you can apply it on your team. Level 8 adds our Wisdom modifier to Cleric cantrips, another nice upgrade. And then we can also go back and take, I guess I should have Hold Person on, and an ability score improvement, potentially of Wisdom or on our Constitution if you need a little bit more survivability. But I think Wisdom just works a little better here. Level 9 gives us our very powerful Destructive Wave. This is a huge area of effect attack. It can apply Radiating Orbs. It can push enemies off of ledges. It does it all. It's a great spell. And we get Flame Strike. It's not good. Destructive Wave is much better. I also like to take Insect Plague here because this can stop or create difficult terrain. In some fights, this is very useful. And then for our next spell, Planar Binding is okay, but you can even go back to some earlier levels here and take, like Aid, for example. At any time, you can swap out your Cleric spell, so it's not a massive deal. Level 10 gives us our Channel Divinity. We can also take Bursting Sinew, and then we'll go ahead and I guess throw on Mass Cure Wounds. We got all the spells that we want to take. Destructive Wave is really a big one for us. Level 11 gives us, again, one of the best spells in the game is Planar Ally. Being able to summon in a genie to push enemies off of ledges and teleport away, super useful. And also the Diva, or the Deva, really good because it gets a huge amount of radiant damage on its attacks. And Hero's Feast is a really good choice too. Harm, not the best. Heal, it's okay, but Hero's Feast allows your team to hide out in Cloud Kill, which is a kind of interesting strategy you can use. You can just pop it down your feet and everyone has to go in and get hit by it. For our final level, I guess we can throw on either Blade Barrier or Heal's not a bad spell to have in a panic. And then for our final feat here, again, Warcaster is actually a good choice, getting advantage to hold concentrations, and then also the reaction shock and grasp. I think this actually makes it much better than increasing our wisdom, because we want to hold Spirit Guardians as long as possible. So doubling our chances is really good, especially since we don't have the item for it. Now, our gear is a little bit more straightforward because we can get some Act 1 items that last the entire game. Luminous Armor, it deals a Radiant Shockwave, which applies -2 to radiating, or gives a -2 to enemies' attack rolls by applying radiating orbs in a 3-meter radius when we deal radiant damage. So you can get lucky and hit someone and make an explosion, deal radiant orbs, and then hit another person and apply that. Especially because we also have the Holy Lance Helm, which will apply radiating damage if the target misses an attack roll. So if they miss us, they're going to keep missing us. I also have the Thunderskin Cloak, so whenever a creature with reverberation deals damage to the wearer, you can make them dazed. This is great because we can also apply radiating orb gear with the Boots of Stormy Clamor, which is Act 1 as well. And when we apply a condition, radiating orbs, we apply 2 turns of reverberation. So this all works together very well. And then the Reviving Hand. You could also go with the Luminous Gloves, but this one is a little better because when you heal a creature, it gets the effects of Blade Ward. When you revive, it gets Death Ward. If you're going with a good aligned playthrough, I guess you could go here and even go with the Hell Rider's Pride, which you get in Act 1. I guess just a side note here, I mentioned the Armor Persistence, but you can also swap out your heavy armor on your other character for the Armor of Agility too, because you're going to see there, it actually gives you a little bit higher armor class on this character. So if you don't want to go with the Armor Persistence on them, it's a kind of a side note that I just thought of, but this is going to be our gear spread. Now for the Amulet of the Devout, just fits perfectly on a Cleric. It gives you an extra Channel Divinity charge. So we now have 3 of those, which is great. And then we also get a +2 to our spell save DC. The Whispering Promise will apply a Bless on heal. So we get Bless and Blade Ward on heal. We heal ourselves with this Ring of Regeneration for 1d4. So every turn we're getting Bless Blade Ward for taking half physical damage. And then Fowler Aloof here with its song of the Shrieking Song. The Singing Song give a 1d4 bonus to attack rolls and Charisma, Wisdom, Intelligence saving throws. Or Shriek, which will give them penalty, and they'll take additional thunder damage. This is actually a really good ability to have, and it can provide a great support to our team. I also have the Shield of Devotion on here because what we can actually do, we have Hero's Feast and we also have Aid here, but we can actually go ahead with applying the free Aid spell that we get. This is extra 10 health points to our team. So boom, we give our team, I guess it applies to ourselves. And then we can also go ahead with casting the Hero's Feast to boost up our overall team's health. But I guess I also go with the hand crossbows in the offhand. Not really useful, but if we have nothing else we can do and we need an attack, that's I guess a way to get it. Now, as much as Gale should be a wizard, you can roll the Blade Singing Wizard, which is pretty fun. I think a Sorcerer is just much more beneficial here. I actually think the 2 best choices would be Storm or Shadow Magic. So Storm will give you the bonus action Fly, great survivability early game, and then you get Create Water, which you can then do. You can do a Quicken Create Water into Chain Lightning, which is double damage, very useful. And then we also get this here, which allows you to fly. It's really good. Storm Sorcerer, great spell list. You also get resistance to lightning and thunder, but I think the Shadow Magic they have added some patch 8 is much better. If you get downed, you come back on with 1 health point, we get a Shadow Dog, and we can teleport. The Shadow Magic Sorcerer is extremely powerful. Now we're going to go with a stat spread. I would recommend going with 16 Constitution, 14 Dexterity, 10 Intelligence, Wisdom, and 16 Charisma. Although an increase to our Constitution here can be a little bit better for more health, it might even be better to go with higher Dexterity for the additional armor class that you would get and the additional initiative. My personal preference is actually to go with it like this here, but you can also go with a higher Constitution. Make sure that you got a good way to protect your wizard if you're going to go with the, I guess either way here, they're going to have darkness to protect themselves, but once we have to get to level 3 first. Level 2, I guess I should have mentioned the spells that we want to take at level 1 are Shield and Magic Missile, and then we also want to take Chromatic Orb because we can have our Shadow Hound apply Omens, and then we can get our sorcery points back utilizing that. And for cantrips, I would recommend having Mage Hand to throw water bottles. Again, you can drop things as a free action. It's super useful. Bone Chill, if there's a target that is going to get healed, we can prevent them from receiving healing. Firebolt's nice to explode things, and then also Ray of Frost or Shocking Grasp there for extra counter support. And then again, level 2 Chromatic Orb, and we're going to take Distance Spell to increase our spell's range by 50% and Twin Spell to be able to apply Haste to 2 targets. Level 3 gives us one of our most powerful abilities, Eyes of the Darkness. So we can create our own special darkness that gives us the ability to see within it, which only warlocks can see. And there's only a handful of enemies in the game, Yurgir and Raphael, being able to see in darkness. So everyone else other than them is going to be really messed up by it. And with one of our other items, there's actually 3 items in the game that lets us see in magical darkness, so we can have our whole team chilling in it. Now for our next spell, I would recommend grabbing the Scorching Ray spell. It's great damage, especially early on in the game, so you can go ahead with this or Hold Person, but our concentration is better utilized on darkness. Quicken spell here allows us to do bonus action spells. That's a really big part of the Sorcerer. Level 4 gives us another choice in cantrip. Again, you could go with something Minor Illusion and group them together. For our next cantrip, I would recommend grabbing either Hold Person or Misty Step, because this gives us the ability to get away from targets, which we don't have until level 11. And then Hold Person is great because you can hold enemies still. We're going to go with Misty Step here, and then we can actually swap this off a bit later on when we get the free Misty Step at level 11. Now for our next feat, our Sorcerer needs to go first, so Alert. Another character with Alert here, I know, but it's such a useful feat in Honor mode. Level 5, I want to really grab Counterspell, but Lightning Bolt's the best choice here. Extra damage, you can double it with water. It's super effective, and it can hit many targets as well. Once we get to level 6, we got the Hound of Ill Omen, which is our bonus action dog that we can set up, and it lasts until... It used to last until long rest. Now it's permanent. So you can summon this in at the end of your right before you long rest, and it'll continue to persist. You get your sorcery points back. And we're going to take Counterspell at this level. Although Fireball, some people really like. I think it's better to have 2 Counterspell characters and have that early on. Now level 7 here, we get Ice Storm. Such a good spell. It creates difficult terrain, and it deals a good chunk of damage. And if you have Water Bottle set up, it doubles the damage of the cold section of that. So that's great too. Level 8 here, we get to take another spell, and I would recommend either Confusion or going back and taking Fireball. And then for our next feat, we can go with the increase to our Charisma, or an increase to our Dexterity for better survivability and more initiative. Warcaster's not a bad feat, as mentioned, everyone can really benefit from that. Or Spell Sniper to give yourself Eldritch Blast and give you increased critical hit threshold, but I think the best one is the increase to Charisma. Level 9 gives us the best spells with Cone of Cold. It's huge damage, and you can do a lot with it. Level 10 gives us access to another cantrip, which we can take, I guess, Acid Splash here. For spells, we're going to go with Hold Monster, which is extremely useful in some fights. And for the meta magic, we could go with something like the Careful Spell or Heightened Spell, your preference there. We got Quicken Spell, which is what we want. Now, this is where we can take off the Misty Step, because we get Shadow Walk. So basically, the next spell you cast will benefit from Distance Spell without costing any sorcery points. Massive. So yeah, you get 50% increased range in your spells, and you can teleport. It's huge. It's such a good ability. We also can take Chain Lightning here and then replace spell. We don't need Misty Step anymore because we have a free Misty Step basically. And then what we're going to take is Globe of Invulnerability. This is going to be a big game changer for survivability's sake. And at level 12, we can take for our final feat, Circle of Death, I guess, is good for the huge range if you want to use the Staff of Cherished Necromancy. We could dual wield, and you could use the dual wielding feat and take 2 staves. Sunbeam is a good choice in spells, I guess, as well. I mentioned even Cloud Kill being able to chill out, and that is nice. You could also go back to some previous levels and take some of the other spells that you didn't take, as there's, I guess we really have the ones that we want here. We got Chain Lightning, which is the best choice for spell. Circle of Death does have a slight benefit of being able to apply Radiating Orbs in a huge area of effect, so you could potentially take that if you want to use the Staff of Cherished Necromancy instead. And for our final feat, either the Charisma increase there, or you can go with the Warcaster feat, as that's a good choice as well. I like to have the higher Charisma for better spell casting, so that's what we'll roll with there. And as for gear, we actually have a few really good things that we want to equip here. So we got the Robe of the Weave here, giving us additional health and healing. You're going to have to use light armor or robes, and most of the time robes plus mage armor is the best choice. So actually what you want to do is take a scroll of mage armor if you can find one, and this will boost up your armor class here. I also like to have the Sentinel Shield for the +3 to initiative, and then Hellrider Longbow for the +3 to initiative. As mentioned, our Sorcerer wants to always be the first mover in combat because it can use Ice Storm and things like that to set up difficult terrain. I also mentioned taking the Snowburst Ring. I gave it to my main character there, but you could utilize that as well. I just think that the Coruscation Ring here to apply Radiating Orbs is huge, because if you're illuminated, you can also set up Radiating Orbs alongside your Cleric. And the Ring of Mental Inhibition is mentioned whenever a target fails a saving throw against a spell, it gets mental fatigue, -2 to their mental save. So you're more likely to land Hold Person command and things like that. We also have the Hood of the Weave for +2 to spell save DC. Cloak of Displacement, which will basically turn you invisible, giving you enemies disadvantage on the attack rolls against you. This is really good. survivability wise. We also you got gloves of dexterity here, so you could go with, I guess, the higher. If you went with the higher constitution, you could go with the gloves of dexterity to offset that. Also, we can benefit from the gloves of the Belligerent Skies here, which will apply reverberation, as we have another character that can apply reverberation. It's sometimes nice to be able to stack it on multiple enemies at a time, and we can do that especially with our radiating orbs as well. And we also have the evasive shoes to increase our armor class, mark a Heshker, and you always want to make sure that you're attuned before you get into combat with the bolts of doom, because this will give us a free chain lightning, and that's really good. Also a free thunderbolt, and we also get lightning charges on our spell casting, which is great. Really go with the best available cloak early game, and you can use both these items in the early game. Anything that boosts your initiative is really good on your sorcerer, because they need to go first and spell cast. That's just kind of their job, setting up crowd control and damage, removing high value targets. Now, as much as I love Karlach as a barbarian, the highest damage that you can get in honor mode is honestly to go with the monk mixed with the rogue. And there's soul coins, which oddly enough add a 1d4 bonus twice to her attacks. We're going to see it actually gets crazy in the amount of damage that she can do. So you get the flurry of blows here. That's all fine and dandy. Now we actually have an interesting stat spread, because we're going to take the Tavern Brawler feat. So we want to have we want to have a good dexterity stat here. We want to have 15 constitution. We want to have 16 wisdom. We also want to use strength potions. And the reason being, this allows us to have good survivability with 16 dex, 15 constitution, and then it puts our strength up to a high number with a +8 to our strength modifier, which turns to a +16 to our attack rolls with Tavern Brawler. It's insane. You can get strength potions really easy on. And also in Act 1, there's the Club of Hill Giant Strength, which you can put in your offhand and still punch with. So that's kind of the optimal way to play this, because we can add a lot of extra damage from wisdom and extra survivability with dexterity. Level 2 gives us our bonus action, disengage, dash, and or patient defense. They're good, use them situationally, but I find the better options are to use our key points for just pure damage. Way of the open hand, this gives us the topple, which can knock targets prone. We also get the stagger, which can prevent them from taking reactions, or the push, which can push creatures 5 meters away, which is really fun, because sometimes you can push them into like a Spirit Guardian or something for double the damage, or push them off of a ledge. Level 5, we get resistance to fall damage and our first feat, which we're going to go with the Tavern Brawler, which then we're going to take an increase to our constitution there. This gives us more survivability, and it doubles our, we're never missing an attack. Level 5, 2 attacks and Stunning Strike, which can stun a target, taking them out of the combat for the next turn. That is really good. I can't understate how powerful that is. Level 6, we got Manifestation of Soul, Body, and Mind, which can add an additional 4 to 7 psychic damage to our attacks. We also get Wholeness of Body, which gives us an extra bonus action and restores half of our key points. Really good. Super effective for just overall damage output. Level 7 gives us Evasion, so basically a spell will now do half damage, but if we succeed on our save, it does no damage. Huge boost to our survivability, and if we get Charmed or Frightened, we cast Stillness of Mind, get the extra bonus action, we're good to go. That's actually preferred to get that to apply. Level 8 gives us another choice in our feat. I like to have Alert. Again, everyone benefits from Alert. We're going to delay it a little bit here, or you can only increase to our Dexterity here for better armor class, but I think the Alert feat just is a little bit more impactful for our build, just because if we get everyone going first, we can shut down encounters before they start. Now, we also get the Key Resonation Blast here. This one doesn't use an action, so you can punch them to resonate the key with your fist, and then you can go with the Key Resonating Blast as a free action. It does quite a nice area of effect damage to enemies. We also get Unarmored Defense, which makes this a difficult terrain, does not slow us down. It's great. Now we're going to multi-class, because Purity of Body kind of sucks, and it's much better for us to take the Rogue here, because this gives us some more proficiencies. We can do lock picks. I took Stealth and a Sleight of Hand there. Then we also got the bonus action abilities here, which are good because they don't waste our key points. But finally, we're going to be taking the Thief. Extra bonus action, extra flurry of blows. The damage is insane. So yeah, as you see, our bonus action does 54 to 104 damage. This is adding a +1d4 fire, psychic, force, bludgeoning, fire. Yeah, it's insane the amount of damage we can do. That's one unarmed attack does upwards of 52 damage. That's what I mentioned. This is one of the strongest single target combat builds in the game. This is because this also doesn't even actually factor in the Horns of the Berserker adding additional 2 damage, so that's an extra 4 for the Flurry of Blows. And then we also get the Veststalker Mantle, give ourselves invisibility on a critical hit. If you're not the Dark Urge, don't worry, you don't have to utilize that. You could even go with something like the, I guess, Dominate Person there if you want to, or Slade Share Cloak, because we can stealth ourselves, and this will give us an additional critical hit, or chance, which is nice. We could also go with the Vest of Soul Rejuvenation. This gives us a reaction with the Greater Kashigo counter, so we can do a bonus act. Not a bonus action. If an attacker attacks us and misses, we get to use a reaction to do a punching attack. And again, our punches hit for upwards of 50 damage. And then we also get these gloves of soul catching. Use the best available monk gloves earlier on in the game because there's a bunch of different ones. This one can also give us a +2 to our constitution, which does give us a bit of extra survivability, up to 111 health points. And then I got the boots of uninhibited Kashigo, adding our wisdom modifier to unarmed attacks. This is great. However, you can also swap these around if you want the disintegrating Nightwalkers or the bone spike boots, +1 armor class and saving throws as long as you're not wearing a shield. And then it also gives us the additional jump, and we get brutal leap. So we can use the brutal leap to actually get a little extra momentum on our, if we need to get into combat a little bit quicker. So that is a good choice if you want to, but alternatively, the boots on Kashigo can add a lot of extra damage, putting it over to 100. This is also buffed up because the Shadow Cloak Ring works here. Additional 1d4 bonus against lately or heavily obscure creatures. So that, again, pushes those numbers up even higher. We got the Sentient and Amulet here, which gives us the Key Restoration, which is a great one because this allows you to regain key points equal to your martial arts die. Massive boost. We also have the Ring of Protection to give increased armor class. And then Gaunter Mail, because this gives us the ability to haste ourselves. And this haste is great because when we have haste, we don't get lethargic afterwards. So if you can get that onto your character, you can even then go ahead with something like the Strange Conduit Ring, which will then give you a 1d4 bonus of psychic damage onto your attacks. So yeah, it can get pretty crazy what extra damage riders you add on here depending on your setup, but I think that this one is the best one here. Now I'll show you what it looks like when we put it into combat. And I guess a little secret that you can do, you can actually grab Mark Hesker first there, because what you can do is actually take your Cleric and then use the Staff of Spell Power here, which gives you the Arcane Battery. So you can go ahead, and then what you can do is you can buff up your team with an Upcasted Aid, giving a 25 healing, or you can do a Hero's Feast, which will also give them extra health, as you can see here. So you can go ahead, apply that, and then also if you swapped out the staff, you could get that as well. So boom, there, for example, we got our health on our main character up to 175, and then our tank with our monk with 148, and we'll get into a fight. Now, the beautiful thing about having everyone with alert and decent dexterity is we get to all move together. This is good because sometimes you need to swap to another character to be able to do like a tiny bit of damage to finish an enemy off, and this gives you a lot of flexibility. Now, we got a first set up, so I'd recommend going around. I have the Shrieking Song active. Now, I'd recommend getting Spirit Guardians up as one of our first things as a cleric, and you can upcast this to level 4 if you'd like for the extra damage here. They tried to counterspell. Didn't work out for them. And then we're going to go around applying the Shrieking Song, but then also the Radiating Orb damage, which you can see there, we're applying Reverberation onto enemies, which is just great. And if we line this up well, we don't have enough movement speed, but I guess we can then go ahead with applying buffs to our team, because if you have Mass Healing Word will apply both Blade, Bless Ward, and Blade Ward. You can also use Sanctuary, but I also mentioned taking the hand crossbow, because this allows us to actually attack another character. It's not oftentimes you hit, but sometimes you just don't have any other option for your bonus action. Now we have our Spellcaster here, and this is really important because we want to get in to do some of our more powerful spells. And since we got a decent enough spell save DC, we're not using the Helmet of Arcane Acuity, we can actually drop some of our more damaging spells right away. Now, Circle of Death's not a great choice for a spell, but you can apply Radiating Orbs to multiple enemies, and we got 2 types of Chain Lightning. Ideally, we're going to set up crowd control too, so we could do something like drop down an Ice Storm right here, which will make some targets slip and fall, and it'll also take out some targets. We apply Mental Fatigue to a bunch of enemies, so they're much more likely to get hit with our spells. Now we also got like 4 stacks of Radiating Orbs on some of these, 6 stacks, so they have -6 to their attack rolls. And we got Quicken Spell here that we can also use. So when we go with a Quicken Spell, we can then cast something like Chain Lightning. We want to get rid of this Spellcaster here. I don't have enough movement speed, so I guess I'll just cast it at this target here and hope that it can chain. Yeah, it worked perfectly. So boom, that took out the target we wanted to take out, left the one we targeted alive. And then now it's our turn. So this is, we have Icy Terrain set up, but what we want to do is we have Divine Smites that we can do, and we also have our ability to set up Darkness. So we got a couple of really good defensive abilities here, but we can even just go as simple as something like a Divine Smite on this target here. We could have probably just did a normal attack. That missed. Lovely. I'll just do a normal attack there, taking them out. Perfect. This melted it because we have the helldusk gloves on, so we can now walk on the water, which is great. And we use up our 2 actions, but we also get to do a bonus action spell. And this is where this build comes together, because we can use like a command, and I like the command approach, and then we can, I should have upcasted that, but we can command approach, tell them to walk into Spirit Guardians, and you can upcast that, unlike what I did there. Now we also have a damage dealer here, and what they're all about, we have a lot of targets here. They want to go in and just punch things. I applied the Celestial Haste from the bow before we got into combat, but I'm just going ahead with one regular old punch here, which did a good chunk of damage, wasn't enough. We'll then punch them again, taking them out. We then turn invisible, perfect, and this is another high value target that we want to go after. I'm just going to We'll try a stunning strike unarmed, see if we can land that 99% hit chance, and it missed, or didn't get the extra ability off. Boom, we'll just go for another punch there. And then our bonus actions, these are where we really bring the damage, so we can go with the pushing attack there to keep them away. We missed with our second attack, that sucked. I guess I'll go after this girl, she's Spellcaster. There we go, we got rid of at least one of them, so... Yeah, the monk cleans up in terms of damage, and that was our first round of combat. Pretty effective. We set up crowd control with the ice, but I removed it. Now here's where Warding Flare really shines. It's probably not best for a volley to use Warding Flare, but you can protect Nimbus here, I guess, if you wanted to. The improved Warding Flare or Warding Flare lets you protect yourself or an ally. I would recommend just waiting. You want to use it once per turn. I guess I can use it there. Turned it into a miss. Exactly what we wanted. Having your team grouped up for them to cast spells like that is sometimes not ideal. And having your reactions to counterspell users is nice because then you can protect Gale with, it takes the pressure off him needing to save his counterspell reaction, and then you can use like a shield instead. Geez, our dog really got beat up there. That was not ideal. Normally you want to get the dog to go in and then use either the Umbral Tangle or the Ominous Bite. I guess it uses action at the start of combat. We told that character to move towards us, which is nice. Command is so good. And here's where the Greater Kashigo counter comes in handy. Because that's a lot. That's like 30 damage on an attack, and they missed us, so super ideal to utilize your reaction that way. And we left our reaction free for a counterspell, so we could stop this if we wanted to. Let's use Silent Backlash there. I use the lifted abilities on my main character. It's nice to have one reaction for a counterspell, though. Now on our next turn, we got to deal with the crowd control, or we got to deal with the spellcasters over here. So what we can do is we can actually go with a chain lightning, which is really great damage, obviously. So let's spread around, taking out multiple targets. Good. It didn't take them all out though. And that's where we got our quicken spell, and then we can also go ahead with like a lightning bolt, or we can, if we wanted to be cheeky, we could have used the arcane battery there and gave us another free version of it. But we're just going to go with the quicken version of the spell. We can also set down darkness, since we have the ability to see in darkness. I'm just going to pop that down right here. It lets us see in it, and then my character who has the staff that, or the spear that can see in darkness is fine in here. So this gives us a place to like camp out in if we need to. And the beautiful thing about having lightning water here is we have Cone of Cold, which we can then go ahead here and freezing the surfaces in place. There's now ice around to that enemy. And we have our bonus action. I guess we don't have the ability to do, we didn't do a weapon attack, so we don't get the action there. But we can also run back to our darkness here because we're safe in it. And then go with something like a little heal or a Shield of Faith if you need a bonus action survivability. We're just going to skip our turn there. Now, Karlax is surrounded, but this is actually an ideal situation. And a good point, if you have the Scabby Pugilist Circlet, you can actually do extra damage against these targets. I'm going to punch this one here. Always punch your lowest health target, because your bonus actions are actually stronger than your actions. Yeah, that's crazy. And then we're going to go with the knock the target prone here. Boom. That was enough to take them out. Yeah, it's absurd how much damage that you can do with a monk. Yeah, if there's enemies near your monk, they're going to regret that, because they go down so quick. So we can just actually hightail it back here because we got a lot of movement speed, and we'll just, I guess, camp out here. We got an extra attack. I applied the haste from the celestial haste here, so sometimes we can get an extra attack in. We'll just skip our turn there. And our cleric is in a pretty good position. We'll just move them out of darkness so they're not blinded anymore. And then I guess we could, I haven't used our genie. I should have used that before we got into fight, but you can summon in the genie. We're going to use this to chase down the enemy there. It gets to go after this target here wakes up from his nap. And he actually had days from Shadowheart's cloak, which is awesome. Now, this dog is, yeah, going to probably slip on the ice. That's fine. We summon in our genie there, which is good. They cast Crusader's Mantle. That's fine. We can just attack them with the Titanic Backlash. That took them out. Oh, that was ridiculous. Now, for, I guess, our final feat, or our final attack here, I don't have enough movement speed. What I wanted to do is use the Slashing Flourish, is because with a Slashing Flourish, you can attack 2 targets at once, and if you put your reactions on to have Divine Smites on, you're going to smite both targets. This is a huge damage boost because you can hit 2 targets with an attack. Obviously, that's pretty powerful. We can then go Cone of Cold there. I guess I'll use Shadowheart here because she has a really fun spell as well that I want to showcase with the Destructive Wave. And you can apply Reed-Eating Orbs on the enemy really easily utilizing that. And also knock them prone. That was good. Again, having that hand crossbow is nice in your cleric because you can sometimes get a little extra damage in on it, especially with the Fowler Alluve weapon. And then our monk is really, again, the cleanup. You just have to do punches with them, flurry of blows in the high health targets, and there it is, the best honor mode party build guide in Baldur's Gate 3. We do a lot of everything here with the ability to break your oath, but also you got great crowd control, damage, and overall support. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit the subscribe button below if you enjoy this video. I have many other builds guides on my channel. If you want to see something else, you can check out the channel for more, and I hope you have a great day. We'll catch you all in the next video.